The mist hung heavy over the Nandi hills, clinging to the ancient trees like spirits reluctant to depart the mortal realm. In the sacred grove where the Orkwayot, the supreme spiritual leader, communed with the ancestors, a prophecy was being born. The year was 1860, and Koitalel Arap Samoei, barely 20 years old, stood before the assembled elders, his eyes fixed on visions only he could see. "I see a great snake," he spoke, his voice resonating through the hushed assembly. "A snake of iron, belching smoke and fire, winding through our sacred lands. It brings with it men with pale skin and strange weapons. They come not as friends, but as conquerors." The elders exchanged troubled glances. For generations, the Nandi had lived as lords of their domain, feared warriors whose cattle raids and military prowess had earned them both wealth and respect among neighboring tribes. The idea of conquest was foreign to them. They were the unconquered, the proud, the free. "When will this come to pass?" asked the eldest among them, his wrinkled face grave with concern. "Soon," replied Koitalel, "but not tomorrow. We have time to prepare, to strengthen our resolve, for this battle will not be won in days or months, but in years." Little did the assembled know that Koitalel's prophecy would herald a resistance spanning 25 years, the longest anti-colonial struggle in Kenya's history. When Koitalel assumed the mantle of Orkoyot following his father's death, the Nandi nation stood at the height of its power. Their warriors, armed with spears and shields, moved like shadows through the highlands, their cattle raids legendary, their victory songs echoing through valleys. But Koitalel knew that the true test of their strength lay ahead. As foretold, the British came, their colonial ambitions stretching across East Africa like grasping fingers. The Iron Snake, the Uganda Railway, began its inexorable crawl through Nandi territory in 1895, a metal intrusion cutting through ancestral lands. Koitalel gathered his war council beneath the sacred fig tree that had witnessed centuries of Nandi history. His tall frame, draped in the traditional red cloak of the Orkwayot, commanded immediate respect. "They bring more than their iron snake," he said, his deep voice solemn. "They bring new ways, new gods, new laws. They will ask us to bow, to serve, to forget who we are." "We will never bow," stated Kipniole, his most trusted general, the assembled warriors murmuring their agreement. Koitalel nodded, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "Our strength is not merely in our spears, but in our spirits. We fight not only for our lands, but for our very identity." And so began a guerrilla campaign that would become legend. Nandi warriors, expert in the terrain, struck at railway workers, disrupted construction, and confounded British military expeditions. They melted into forests before reinforcements could arrive, utilized the highlands' fog as cover, and employed tactical retreats that left the British chasing shadows. The colonial authorities, frustrated by their inability to subdue this primitive tribe, launched 5 major military expeditions against the Nandi between 1895 and 1905. Each one failed to break Koitalel's resistance. In his hillside compound protected by layers of sentries and spiritual barriers, Koitalel knelt before the ceremonial gourd that contained the sacred symbols of his office. The sounds of distant gunfire echoed through the hills, another British expedition encountering Nandi resistance. "Father of our nation," whispered Kipniole, entering the hut after the customary announcement. "The British commander has sent messengers. They wish to discuss terms of peace." Koitalel remained silent, reading the patterns in the sacred relics before him. After several moments, he spoke without turning. "They speak of peace, while their hands drip with the blood of our people. What shall I tell the messengers? Tell them that the Nandi have discussed terms many times before. Ask them what makes these terms different from those broken in the past." The British, growing desperate to complete their railway and establish full control, had indeed broken previous agreements. But the cost of the ongoing conflict was becoming too great for both sides. The Nandi had lost many warriors, and British resources were being drained by a campaign that showed no signs of ending. When the messengers returned with assurances of a new approach, Koitalel consulted the sacred emblems once more. This time he saw troubling signs, betrayal wrapped in the cloak of reconciliation. They planned deception, he told his council, but sometimes to end a war, one must walk knowingly into danger. October 19th, 1905, dawned with an unusual clarity across the Nandi hills. The morning mist, typically persistent until midday, had dissolved early, as if the land itself wished to bear witness to the day's events. Koitalel prepared for the meeting with British Colonel Richard Meinertzhagen with the solemnity of a man who has glimpsed his fate. He donned his ceremonial attire, the red cloak, the headdress of colobus monkey skin, the sacred emblems of his office. Around his neck hung the ceremonial knife, symbol of his authority to cut away falsehood and reveal truth. "You need not go yourself," Kipniolai urged. "Send me in your place. The signs foretell danger." Koitalel placed a hand on his general's shoulder. "Some paths can only be walked by the one chosen to lead. If my blood is to nourish our resistance, then it must be so." He gathered 15 elders and set off for the meeting place at Ketbarak, near present-day Nandi Hills town. Meinertzhagen had requested that both parties come unarmed as a gesture of good faith. Koitalel, in compliance, instructed his warriors to leave their spears behind, though he knew the British would likely not honor the same request. As the Nandi delegation approached the designated spot, Koitalel walked slightly ahead. In the distance he could see Meinertzhagen with his contingent of soldiers, their rifles conspicuously present, despite the agreement. "He comes armed," noted one of the elders. "As I foresaw," Koitalel replied calmly. "Stay alert but show no fear. Remember this day, for what happens now will echo through generations." The distance between the two leaders narrowed. Koitalel, maintaining the dignity of his office, extended his hand in the customary greeting. Meinertzhagen reached out as if to reciprocate, but instead drew a concealed pistol with his other hand and fired. The sound of the shot reverberated across the hills. Koitalel fell, the bullet striking him directly in the heart. Before the elders could react, British soldiers opened fire, killing all 15 men in the Nandi delegation. The British had achieved through treachery what they could not accomplish through military might, the elimination of the resistance's spiritual and strategic leader. But what the British failed to understand was that Koitalel's power extended beyond his physical presence. His blood, seeping into the soil of Nandi Hills that day, did not mark the end of resistance, but transformed it. In the years that followed, the Nandi people would draw strength from his martyrdom. His prophecies, his 25-year resistance, and his unwavering commitment to Nandi sovereignty became the foundation of a national identity that would eventually contribute to Kenya's broader struggle for independence. Today, Koitalel Arap Samoei stands as one of Kenya's first anti-colonial heroes, a visionary leader whose defiance against overwhelming odds reminds us that the spirit of freedom, once kindled, can never truly be extinguished, even when the body that housed it returns to the earth from which it came. In the mist-shrouded hills where he once walked, the people still speak his name with reverence. For in the story of Koitalel Samoei lies an eternal truth. That true power resides not in weapons or conquest, but in the unbreakable will of a people determined to remain free.